let me ask you all a question. Do you think that it is possible to manipulate people's decisions? What about their choices? And even more than that, is it possible to manipulate people's perceptions of reality? Now, these are all questions that I find incredibly fascinating. In fact, for years when asked what my ideal superpower would be, it's always just been some variation of mind control or mind reading. I mean, imagine the kind of magic tricks that I could pull off from that. For the last 4 years, I've been here at the University of Toronto, studying neuroscience and philosophy, exploring just how the human mind works. But for a couple years prior to that, I was unknowingly already studying human behavior through an area that seems vastly different: magic. Now, while magic and human behavior might seem quite unrelated, magic to me has always relied on one simple formula. The magician starts by setting a story for you and the audience to follow along. You, the audience, generate some sort of prediction about what you expect will occur. Inevitably, that prediction is wrong. And just like that, you are all surprised or freaked out, depending on the kind of person you are. Magicians need to develop an incredibly strong sense of what it is your brain is predicting at every moment in order to create these incredible tricks and illusions. And in fact, all magic is, in some way, an attempt to break the human prediction machine that is your brain. And this extends outside magic for entertainment as well, to things like scams, pickpockets, and thieves of all sorts. One of the many ways in which magicians can break the sense of cause and effect is by manipulating your beliefs. One belief in particular that has a really strong impact on your perception of reality is your belief in agency or free will. We go through our lives believing that we are the authors of our own stories. We believe that events happen, but it is our decisions that manipulate the outcomes. But all magicians know that it is far too easy to manipulate each and every one of your choices, regardless of how free they may seem. And what's scarier still is that magicians can manipulate your choices while convincing you the entire time that your choice was entirely of your own volition. Now, I could talk about this all day, but I'd like to give you all a short demonstration. I'd like you all please to pull out your phones and open to the calculator app. I'll be giving you all a series of instructions to follow in a moment, and I'd like you to follow them as quickly as possible. Now, a trick like this usually works best on groups of 3 to 7 people, but I think a group as big as this should work just the same. I'd like you all to please think of a number between 1 and 50, but there are a few rules to your choice. The number you pick must be double-digit, both the digits must be odd numbers, and one number must be larger than the other. Now, please write down the first number that you think. What's interesting here is that although this choice was entirely free, supposedly, a lot of you will have picked the very same number. If the first number you thought of, or the number you wrote down, was 37, could you please raise your hands? That's a fair few of you throughout the room. So how does something like that work? Well, first, through these series of instructions, we narrowed it down to merely 8 choices. But that still leaves me with a 12.5% chance of getting the right number. And a lot more than 12.5% of you raised your hands just then. Let's rewind a bit to what I said before the trick started. I said that this trick works best for groups of 3 to 7 people. Now, that was a complete lie. And yet, a simple throwaway comment like that is enough to prime your brains to search for something like 3 and 7 in that list of numbers. It seems like such a free and simple choice, and yet it was manipulated by a simple throwaway comment. Now, priming is just one of the many ways in which magicians can manipulate your sense of agency. What's really uncomfortable about this, however, is the extent to which your brain will go to convince you that you are in control. Even lying to you, manipulating your perception of reality in some cases. One particular case of this was illustrated when a patient arrived at the University of Turin. This patient had damage to the right hemisphere of her brain, leaving her left arm entirely paralyzed. But there was something different about her paralysis. To illustrate this, the researchers asked her to place both her hands on the table in front of her. They then asked her to raise her right hand, which she was able to do. They then followed up by asking to raise her left hand, which, as it was paralyzed, remained on the table. But when asked why her left hand hadn't been raised, she was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. My hand is up in the air." When they pointed out that in fact her hand was still in her visual field right in front of her, she further mentioned that, no, that is the researcher's fault. or indeed that was an entirely fake arm placed in front of her. And this wasn't just a single case, this was repeated with multiple patients with this condition, known as hemi-neglect. To understand this phenomenon better, researchers decided to compare fMRI scans of this patient to healthy individuals. And what they found was quite interesting. You see, in most of us healthy individuals, there are two parts of the brain responsible for carrying out motor action. The first step is responsible for simulating. When I think about walking from this side of the circle to there, that part of my brain is active, planning out exactly what I need to do to get there. Once it gets through that stage, my brain then activates the supplementary motor area, which is what allows me to take the steps necessary to get here. What they found in patients with hemi-neglect is that the simulations in their brain were active. They were indeed thinking about raising their arm, moving their body parts that were paralyzed. But the connection between the simulated areas and the supplementary motor area that carry out the action were entirely damaged. This left their brain with an incomplete picture that was incomprehensible with the real. Internally, they still believed their hand had moved, but externally it had not. And so their brain had to come up with these false narratives in order to explain away that discrepancy. Now, this interesting phenomenon only occurs because of one essential property in your brain. You see, our brains are hardwired to find pattern and order in the universe, and they have a tendency to stray away from anything that seems random and formless. In fact, researchers have even identified individual neurons in your brain, single cells that are able to differentiate between my face and someone in the audience, for example, or between a cat and a dog. It is these cells being activated that also allow us to see shapes and faces in clouds sometimes, when really they're just formless blobs in the sky. What's interesting about this need for order, however, is that it doesn't just exist in space. It doesn't just exist with the things that you see. It also exists across time, the events that you experience. For example, if I was to stand here and throw this clicker at someone in the crowd, which would be a very bad idea, you would all be able to internally predict that it's going to land somewhere in that general direction. If you're someone who plays sports, you might even be able to angle your body in a way to catch it. Magicians can utilize and take advantage of this need for order in our brains and give you certain suggestions to manipulate your sense of the world around you. You see, when magicians break your sense of cause and effect in reality, your brains, similar to the patients with hemi-neglect, start scrambling. You start looking for alternative explanations. And what a magician can do is quite simple. We can simply give you an explanation, but a false one. And once that false one has been implanted in your brain, it's very hard for you to actually figure out the real reason. Now, to illustrate this phenomenon better, I'll need a volunteer. Are there any in the crowd? One over there. Please join me up on stage. We have a round of applause for our volunteer. Now, before we get started, I would like you in the front row here, please, to hold on to this envelope. Ensure that I do not touch or tamper with it in any way. That is your responsibility. Now, I'm going to go through this deck, and I'd like you to tell me to stop at any point. Brother, please take this card, memorize it, and show the entire audience. And when you're ready, please take the deck, put the card wherever you want, and shuffle it. I'll turn this way so I can't see anything, and when you're ready, please place the deck back. Wonderful. Now, to ensure that the deck is indeed entirely shuffled, I'd like to give the audience a quick look at it. Please ensure the deck is shuffled. And as we go through it, ensure the card, wherever you saw it, is in there somewhere. Now, the deck is indeed entirely shuffled, and I'm going to attempt to do something quite interesting. I'm going to attempt to make your card teleport through the deck and appear at the top. Just focus on your card for me here, and just think of it, please. And is your card right here the Ace of Spades? No. Yeah, well, we don't need that card anymore then. Let's try something a little different. I have something here that all magicians tend to use. A bit of a magic wand. Just focus on your card for me, please. I just wave my wand around here. There we go. And I'd like you to please go through the deck and find your card in there for me, please. You see, sometimes with magic, it's a bit hard to get stuff going, so you need a bit of a magic wand. Now, have you found your card in there yet? No. Could you tell me where your card was, please, as you go through the deck?
The King of Diamonds.
The King of Diamonds. Well, the King of Diamonds didn't appear at the top of the deck when I wanted it to. And am I correct in saying it isn't there right now either?
No.
No. Perfect. So that only leaves one place the card can go. I don't want to touch the envelope, but could you please go forth open the envelope and show everyone what is inside. It is the king of diamonds. Now, what's interesting about that trick is that it relies on a method that allows you to shift and lower your attention as I see. You see, when I pull out the magic wand, and obviously none of you really believe that that wand is real magic. It serves as a cue to your brain, acting almost like a spotlight, directing your attention exactly where I want it. And it doesn't just direct your attention in space to the cards in my hand. It also directs your attention in time. What it does is it generates these things known as frames of attention. These are frames of time, outside of which our memory will not store it. What this means is that about 5 minutes from now, when you try to recall this trick, chances are, until the point where I pulled out the magic wand and used it, you will not remember anything currently. Now, our brains are incredible tools, and yet magicians want you to use your brains. Magicians want you to look as closely as possible, because chances are the closer you look, the more details you see, the less likely you are to find out what exactly is going on. Our brains serve to create this incredible, rich tapestry of experience that we have every single day. They generate predictions about the world, allow us to survive and carry things out. But a short look at them through magic and neuroscience shows us that our brains are indeed incredibly fallible. They rely upon cues and incomplete data in order to generate these pictures. And so, as I leave, I ask you once again, do you think it's possible to manipulate someone's behavior? What about their choices? And knowing what you do now, do you think you could stop someone from doing the same to you? Thank you very much.